Hey, that does work. Okay, sweet. I also have dangly earrings on. I don't know if you can hear them with the AirPods, but if they do, let me know. I'll take them off.
I don't hear anything.
I don't hear anything either.
Okay, sweet. Because I can hear it. Should I start?
Yes, it's 1 o'clock. Go ahead. I will mute myself and you have the floor.
Okay, sweet. So I'm Courtney, obviously a senior in communication design, and this is Brainworms. So we all know things don't always go as planned. Projects always end up different than what we had first planned, and this one was no different. I tried to embrace it, but it was scary. It's my degree project, pivotal moment. It's the culmination of everything I've learned and done for the past 3 years. Not knowing what the end product will be is scary, when there's so much pressure, even if the pressure is just from myself. This project took all of that to a whole new level. Now, I know what you're thinking. Brainworms? Well, we'll get to that, but first we need to go through the journey that led me there. And a journey it was indeed. I also just love the suspense. So let's get going. This is the research, which is pretty long because it has been a journey. So first, when we first had to make a proposal, I had literally no idea what I was going to do. I was completely at a loss. There were so many things that I kept thinking of that could have been cool. I have a few interests I'm passionate about, and that could have been fun to explore, but I kept coming back to the topic of mental health. It's a very personal subject for me, and I hadn't really done a big project with the topic before, so it felt like this was a good time. Somehow, I ended up at creative burnout. It actually started as me trying to find a link between pre-existing mental illness and creative burnout or just burnout, but there were literally no studies about it, to my surprise and disappointment, which I felt like was a missed opportunity for some interesting research, just because they're already so intertwined, which I will get into later. So I've experienced burnout and I've seen my peers go through it, so it's pretty personal. It was also something I hadn't really given much thought to and wanted to learn more about. So my first researchable question was, how can I bring awareness to how severely creative burnout can affect mental health, validate those dealing with it, and use design to create a healthy way to cope? Which in hindsight was a very big question to answer, but I'm a little proud of myself for trying to be so ambitious. So first I had to figure out what creative burnout was, or more simply, what is burnout? According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, is defined as exhaustion of physical or emotional strength or motivation, usually as a result of prolonged stress or frustration. The term burnout was coined in the 1970s by the American psychologist Herbert Freudenberger. He used it to describe the consequences of severe stress and high ideals in helping professions, like doctors and nurses, and basically people who help other people. But now it's applied to literally any profession. Anybody can experience burnout, especially in this day and age. As with most mental health issues, for a lack of a better word, I don't really like to say mental health issues, but everyone experiences it differently. There's no clear-cut way to diagnose it, as it comes with a variety of symptoms, but there are three main ideas that are considered to be signs of burnout. The first is exhaustion. You feel emotionally and physically drained. You just don't have enough energy. This can also cause physical symptoms like pain and stomach problems. Second one is alienation from work-related activities. People with burnout find their jobs increasingly stressful and frustrating, which some people can probably relate to that a little bit. They can also start to feel cynical about their workplace and colleagues. They may also start to emotionally distance themselves and feel numb about their work, which is perhaps not as relatable. The third is reduced performance. Burnout affects everyday tasks at work, home, and caring for family members. People can feel negatively about their tasks, have trouble focusing, and a general lack of energy and creativity. This is why things are a little tricky with burnout, because a lot of the symptoms of burnout overlap with other mental illnesses, most notably depression. As someone with depression, I thought, hey, I kind of feel these things all the time, and that's the difference. Burnout symptoms stem from the workplace and mostly affect work-related activities, while depression covers all aspects of everyday life and has some more personal symptoms like low self-esteem, hopelessness, and suicidal tendencies. People with burnout don't always have depression, but it can lead to an increased chance of someone getting depression. This also adds fuel to the fire as to why I was so interested in what happens if you already have a mental illness and then you go through burnout. Because they're so closely linked, I feel like there should be something there. I feel like that'd be interesting. I think psychologists should listen to me sometimes. But it's like when you fall, wow. It's like when fall and winter roll around and you get seasonal depression on top of your regular depression. That was incredible. Preventing burnout is a lot easier said than done. There's a lot of ways to prevent it, but it really boils down to taking care of yourself, which, as with most things in this presentation, is easier said than done. And also having a healthy work-life balance and like not letting your work overtake your life, because all work and no play can give you depression. So this brings us to creative burnout specifically. It's essentially the same thing, except it's about your artwork, which in a lot of cases is also your professional job. My favorite analogy is that creativity is like a muscle. When you exercise it regularly, it grows stronger. But if you work it too much all at once, you can strain it or cause an injury. And creative burnout is that injury. Like the quote shown here by someone who I share a birthday with, creative burnout is, the creativity isn't gone. It just needs a little break. Burnout affects everybody differently. You can be experiencing it while everyone else isn't, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you're any less of an artist. We all work differently, and we have different thresholds for stress. While we may share symptoms, the way we feel about and deal with them are all completely different. This was represented in a short survey I did with Mass Art students. I just posted on Mass Art 2020 page. And oh my God. I'm sorry. My target demographic was design students primarily because that's what I'm used to and that's what I am and that's who I'm surrounded by. But I got some interesting insights from people who aren't in any design fields. Like I think I had some painting and illustration, and all of their experiences are very useful too, because in the end, we're all creatives, and creative burnout will most likely inevitably happen to literally all of us. So they all have different ways of coping or not coping, as some people said, different inspirations, hobbies, and interests, and like basically everybody just works differently. And this is where I started to panic a little bit with the project for the first time. So I wanted to help people who were about to hit that point or were already in it get out of it. I had some ideas like a game you could play with friends, an educational type campaign, or a de-stress room with a bunch of activities to help you release stress and get your mind off things. I began to lean more towards the game or de-stress room because they were things you could do with others, and having a support system has been so helpful for me, and it's really helpful for others as well. And also it's because I wanted to mainly deal with designers. Those were like the two physical things, like they're tactile. You can hold them in your hands, you can play with them, you're not in front of the screen, you're like, you remove yourself and do it, and it just seemed like a good idea. And then I was like, okay, now what should these activities include? And that's where shit hit the fan. I ironically started to burn out. I was trying to think of an almighty solution that could help anyone and everyone. Due to the nature of burnout, this was almost impossible. A lot of it is mental, and everyone is so different, as I said before. And it was just impossible to say that one thing would work for everyone. And this stressed me out to no end. So I got too into my own head, thinking the whole project was a failure. I should have done something else, that it made no sense. I made this chaotic mind map while crying in the studio at 5 a.m. that is now locked away in said studio, and had a mental breakdown in what I would later find out was my last in person class ever, because I had skipped my Friday class after my full day meltdown, which really just sums up my entire college experience. So now there's a pandemic going on and everything is online and it's weird. That quickly put an end to my hopes of doing anything social. It wouldn't have worked the same way digitally. I was adamantly against an app the entire time. But as I was already having doubts about how the project was turning out anyways and where I was going, I was like, okay, whatever. Now I actually have a legitimate reason to rethink what I wanted to do. I forgot to recreate the mind map. But one thing I kept expanding off in the very lost mind map was storytelling, because storytelling has been the one constant in my life that I could safely rely on to help me cope with the real world. It comes in a bunch of different forms, so I don't really can't really get bored of it. It will never disappear. It's not going anywhere. It's not harmful to myself or others, and it's just plain reliable. During my last class breakdown, this had been brought up, and as I was asked to expand on that more because it was obviously something I was pretty passionate about, the gears started to unstick a little bit. During what I like to call spring break and spring break 2 electric boogaloo, I did not touch any of my schoolwork. I moved back home, got laid off, now fired from work, and fell into what felt like a never ending depressive episode that I have been struggling with for a month. After those 2 weeks, it was time to get back to work. Once I began to revisit this project, the gears started to turn again, much to my surprise. So once my brain started working again, something clicked. Storytelling has always helped me, and I know I'm not the only one. I don't have access to other people right now, so why not just share my own story? It has, like, my experiences have as much weight as other people's, and it's a lot easier to get to given the current situation. So I got to work, the deliverable. And this part is why I'm extremely nervous. So my new big question was, how can sharing my experience help others in similar situations? But there was also some follow-up questions. What's the story going to be about? How am I going to tell this story? I'm certainly not going to write an autobiography about my struggles with mental illness in college, because that would not be fun for anybody involved. I did want to go the book route though, like a fun little zine is what I called it. My biggest strength is humor, and it's also my biggest coping mechanism, which can sometimes be a little uncomfy for others, but it's okay. I wanted it to be lighthearted to balance out the not so fun experiences. So when I moved back home, I had to get rid of the bookcase in my room. So there are literally books everywhere, all on this weird little thing I have in my room. And amongst these books sitting right above my desk are some Liz Climo comics that I have pictured here. These are the ones that I have. And they're basically just little comics with animals and stuff. And I did a small project inspired by these in my time class freshman year. It was a little book, like 5 or 6 pages, literally just made out of paper. I think I bound it with wire for some reason. Don't know what the reasoning was behind that, but I did it. Now I can't find it, which doesn't really mean anything to the project anymore, but it was kind of important to me, so I'm kind of sad that I lost it. But I digress. So I thought, hey, I could do something like this again, but bigger. And funny now, better. So there were a few other reasons why I chose animal comics. The first is that they're fairly simple to make. I don't need a lot of supplies, just pencil, pen, markers, paper, all of which I have with me. The second is I really love animals, and my house is currently a small zoo, as you can see here by the pictures I included for your enjoyment. I love animals. Between my own pets, family pets, and foster kittens, it's literally a Petco from hell. So I have a lot of inspiration. And the third is that when you take very human problems and represent them with animals, it's more engaging and for some reason that I can't quite explain. They're these cute little animals and I was about to say, they obviously don't have mental illness. And then I remembered that 3 out of 4 of my cats have anxiety. So that's not true. But they are cute and you don't expect them to be struggling. So seeing serious topics through these animal characters makes it a lot lighter and easier to digest. I figured by complementing my own story with these little animal cartoons, it would be more interesting and give it the lighthearted feel I was going for. I started with the story first because I can't really make anything unless I know what I'm talking about. And it took a while for me to get my thoughts in order, as it usually does, as you could probably tell. But I somehow ended up with a 4,000 word story. Something me and my professor were both caught off guard by, but I love talking about myself, so I can't really be that surprised. It's a little hard to summarize 4,000 words in, I can't even see how much I have left, but it's a short amount of time. And the subtitle does a pretty good job. It's a story about mental health, friendship, creativity, and the daily struggles of life, and also storytelling. That was in the subtitle. It's divided into 4 parts, which were supposed to be pictured here, which is the introduction, getting shit done, being creative, and lastly, storytelling. The entire book starts off pretty strong. I'm sorry for the screenshot. It's very low quality and I don't know why. It starts off with the first sentence of me bluntly stating my diagnosed mental illnesses, which can make things make sense. I felt like this was important. Others may, and they did disagree. But my goal with this project is to help others in similar situations feel better. And disclosing this can help others feel like they aren't alone in their struggles. Me and my fellow mentally ill peers find comfort in knowing there's someone else who really gets it. You don't feel so alone. You know there are others like you who are also working on getting better and making their life their own. And it brings people together when you find out that you both struggle with these types of things. I see it happen. It's just a really nice thing. And very supportive, which we're always yearning for support and validity. So now we can get to why brainworms, which is the fun part. So as with a lot of things in my life, started off as a joke. This saying most likely came from the internet or one of my friends, but I started to say worms for brains about people who said or did something dumb, which evolved to me rationalizing my own buffoonery with the worms in my brain worms, etc. So I was talking about my project with my friends and brought up the worms again. So one suggested, as you see here, that I should call it worms in my brain. And I took that and ran for the hills. And as you can see by the second one, she was joking, but I had already started doing it, so it was a little bit too late. But then when I explained it to people and told them, they said I made it work pretty well. So another win for me and the worms. So when I pick up on a saying that really speaks to me, I use it constantly. Brainworms was one of those things. It was so funny to me, and the reactions of others when I say something about having worms for brains satisfies my need to entertain and the need to create chaos. I talked about these worms so much that I started to personify them and treat them like they're real. Like my brain is actually made of worms that are just trying their best, and hopefully. It was a perfect way to represent my story. So I I learned a lot while working on this project, both with the subject matter and about myself. It required a lot of self self reflection, which even though I do that a lot and can be scarily self aware despite not changing how I act, it can be difficult, especially now when there's so much uncertainty and blatantly fucked up things happening. But it was also healing in a way. Well, I don't really go into a lot of specifics in the story. I had to remember some pretty dark times spanning from like my childhood to present day, and it's never easy and never will be easy to remember them. But I can also look back and see how far I've come. I didn't even think I was going to make it to high school graduation, never mind college graduation, if everything goes right. It hasn't been a peaceful journey by any means, and I'm sure it won't be smooth sailing from here on, but I'm still going. Life has its ups and downs, high highs and low lows, and all we can do is just keep going. We'll get through it together. We always do. And that's
Thank you, Courtney.
it. Thank you for clapping.
I clap for everyone.
Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Gunta.
I haven't seen you in a long time.
I haven't seen you in a long time either.
So first of all, can I just say congratulations on your bravery and your courage to speak about something that is very, very difficult, and to bring to light how difficult it is and allow us into that experience. I think you did a fabulous job. I think I speak for myself. I was very empathic with the struggle and the challenges and all the twists and turns, particularly this semester. I too understand depression, which is why I studied it as for my doctorate. And I can tell you that after 13 years of delving into it, there's a lot to be said about overcoming and facing what you just went through. So bravo to you for doing that. And I have a couple of questions. I was wondering how was this experience, the second part, after all the COVID stuff? How was that different from when you first began the degree project research? And if you could talk about, was there anything that was gained in that process or anything that was lost?
I honestly like how it ended up going because as I was like talking about a little bit, I was feeling kind of at a dead end before all of this happened. Like literally the last class I had, I was like at my wit's end with this project, and then this happened and I was kind of forced to rethink it basically entirely. But also like I felt like I was gonna end up doing that anyways at some point, just because of how I am. So it's still not as polished as I would like it to be. I don't have a very good scanner at my house, so I don't have a lot of things done. But it allowed me to kind of write out everything. It was like very therapeutic. Like I liked writing. Like I wrote 4,000 words. That's like, I wasn't expecting that for something that was supposed to be a small zine. So it was cathartic to kind of talk out my emotions, because there's not really many people to talk to. Like you can FaceTime people. I'm with my family right now, but it's like, it's not the same. So it was nice to be able to kind of get my feelings out in a way that was productive. And these past like 2 semesters, I really realized how much I do enjoy writing. So it was fun to be able to actually do that for a project, besides it just being like a little essay, like for the box set or anything, like an actual like little creative writing type thing. It was really nice.
Thank you.
Courtney, thank
Courtney.
you for such a really thoughtful.
Sorry.
Oh, Vinny, you go ahead. I go last. I'm trying.
Vinny!
Oh, okay. Sorry. First of all, I just wanted to say I know we live together, but oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long. I feel like you did such a good job with your project, because I haven't seen anything from like anything from the beginning until like now, and I feel like your project is just literally so you, and it's just like so on brand, and I'm just so proud. Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Bindi.
Oh God, don't call me that.
Yeah, just thank you for such a really thoughtful, personal. I mean, you can only imagine how anxiety inducing it is to get up there and just talk about yourself. So one, for presenting today, because that takes guts. You've got them. And two, just continuing to make, right, through all of it. Like the past few months have been so hard for everyone, and we see hard for you too. So just do, like, you just kept doing it. Like, it's great. I'm super impressed. I'm blown away.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to add, like, don't stop. Like, you got this far, you know, and it's an amazing gift that you just gave us all, and you just gotta, keep it going. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
You did it. You did it. Like, does anyone else feel that way? Like,
I'm
we did
still
it,
like all
guys.
tense.
We did
I
it.
do it myself.